How's it going, everyone? J-Bone here. I've got an action-packed show for you today in which I'll be previewing this weekend's Qatar Grand Prix. Before we get into it, I had a couple announcements. First off, get excited because you're about to hear the grand premiere of the new Formula Bone theme music. It's like the iconic Formula One theme, except somehow even better. If you don't believe me, just wait. Trust me. Secondly, I've received many messages from listeners being concerned for my health after noticing that I have no back support as I sit here in this race car bed recording this podcast. If you're watching the video right now on YouTube, you can see that I just sit crisscross applesauce, just straight up. I want you to know, thank you so much for your concern. And this will be my last time recording this podcast without back support, as I have ordered a floor chair so you can worry no longer. And lastly, if you want to help the Formula Bone F1 show become the biggest Formula One podcast on all of the interwebs, you can help the show out a ton by rating and reviewing on Apple Podcasts. Here's a review that the show recently got from listeners Fred and Larry. It was 5 stars. The review is titled Perfection. Love that. And it reads, "This is quite possibly the best thing to happen to F1. I love it. Very short and sweet. Reviews can just be one sentence. It's not very hard. You can write a nice long paragraph if you'd like, or you can just write a little, nice little sentence. I appreciate the kind words, by the way. I think we can all agree that Kimi Räikkönen is a better thing to happen to F1 than me, J-Bone, but I'll still take the compliment. Thanks for the review, Fred and Larry. If you're listening and haven't rated and reviewed on Apple Podcasts yet, it'd really help out the show. Speaking of the show, let's get into it. Welcome to the Formula Bone F1 show. J-Bone! Welcome back to the Formula Bone F1 show, the Formula One podcast that has the best theme music in all the F1 universe. Wow, that music is absolutely electric. It pumps me up. I'm energized right now. I could drive my race car bed through a brick wall. Probably wouldn't be good for this piece of plastic, but you never know. I'm just that amped right now. I might do it. I'm crazy. Shouts to the composer, 7 to Midnight, who you can follow on social media at the number 7 TO Midnight. I'm Jared J-Bone Borislow, and I'm so happy to have you here. Today's topic, we will be previewing the 2021 Qatar Grand Prix. And the natural first order of business is explaining why I'm pronouncing the country, which many people, at least in the United States, would pronounce as Qatar or Qatar, the way that I am. So I did some research and found out that of the 2 ways that we're taught to say the country here in the United States, one is just plain wrong, and that's Qatar. And the other is accepted, but not preferred, and that's Qatar. The 2 most accepted ways of saying the country's name, and I hope I don't mess these up given that I don't speak Arabic, are Qatar and Qatar. And I heard that the version that sounds more similar to guitar, which is Qatar, is the one preferred by most locals, so it's the one I've decided to go with. Again, if I'm saying that wrong, I apologize. But I know at the very least, it's more correct than Qatar. So I have that. Now, onto the race, which of course couldn't happen without the racetrack. The Qatar Grand Prix will be held at the Lusail International Circuit, which is in the city of Lusail, just north of the Qatari capital of Doha, and is an FIA Grade 1 circuit, which is good because only FIA Grade 1 circuits can host F1 races. The track opened in 2004 for a MotoGP event and has hosted many, many motorcycle events since then, as well as some open wheel and touring car events. This will, though, be the first ever Formula One race held at Lusail International Circuit. My favorite thing about this circuit is that, in case you didn't already know, it's lit! And by that I mean that in 2007, they outfitted the entire racetrack with lights so that it could play host to night races. I am so excited to watch some night racing, you guys. And not just because this race would be on in the actual middle of the night here in Texas if it wasn't a night race. I just love seeing the cars under the lights. It's amazing. It kind of feels like a Fast and the Furious movie a little bit. Just looks awesome. There's just something about fast cars, dark sky, fluorescent lights. Just beautiful. So, as far as Lusail's history with night races, Lusail hosted the first ever night race in MotoGP history and will become the third night-capable circuit in F1 history this weekend. The others, of course, are Singapore and Abu Dhabi, with Saudi Arabia becoming the fourth once it's built, if, that day ever comes. In case you aren't following this story, by the way, the Jeddah Corniche circuit in Saudi Arabia is still under construction. And there's a race there in 2 weekends. Yep. Not great. Pretty concerning, but that's not our focus this episode. An interesting thing to note about this race weekend is that FP1 and FP3 will be held during the day in Qatar's daytime heat, while FP2 will be at night under the lights when it is significantly cooler. So thus FP2, not FP3, not FP1, gives teams their best actual chance at making sure their cars and drivers are race ready. I imagine for the drivers, specifically, it's way different driving under lights than it is under, the sun. And so FP2 will be very important for them to use for adjustment, as well as for the engineers who are working on the cars. So Pirelli, obviously the, manufacturer of all of F1's tires, have stated that Lusail may be a high severity circuit, meaning one that's extra hard on tire wear, in large part because of Qatar's desert sand, which could potentially affect grip. Because it may be high severity, the drivers will be using the hardest tires that Pirelli has, which are the C1, C2, and C3 this weekend. Now, as far as the whole sand thing goes, they actually have artificial grass around the Lusail track to trap sand and prevent as much of it from getting onto the track as possible. But of course, sand, as we all know from going to the beach, finds its way everywhere. Yeah, you could go to the beach and then 2 months later find sand still in your shoes. It's crazy. Sand, it's like glitter, If you get glitter on you, you need to expect to have that on you for at least 3 to 5 years. Crazy. So normally, this part of the show is where I'd get into the history of the race. But this will be the first ever running of the Qatar Grand Prix. So instead, let's talk about how this race came to be. And that story is completely tied to the coronavirus pandemic. Famously, and as you may remember from Drive to Survive, the typically season-opening Australian Grand Prix was canceled in 2020, just hours before FP1 because of the pandemic. It was the first F1 race cancellation since Bahrain in 2011, and the first of many, many race cancellations in 2020. What's crazy is that because there were still 17 Grands Prix in 2020, it's very easy to forget that the schedule was miraculously Frankenstein together after 13 race cancellations. 13. In case you were wondering, the scheduled Grands Prix that were not run last year were the Australian, Vietnamese, Chinese, Dutch, Monaco, Azerbaijan, Canadian, French, Singapore, Japanese, United States, Mexico City, and Brazilian. Crazy. I did not realize that there were 13 canceled Grands Prix last year. Wow. So despite the Australian Grand Prix's 2020 cancellation and the persistent COVID-19 pandemic, the Australian GP was curiously still scheduled to open the 2021 F1 season in March of this year. This confused a lot of people, as Australia had one of the strictest COVID lockdowns of any F1 hosting country and was now giving itself the least amount of time to return to normalcy of any F1 hosting country by scheduling itself to open the 2021 season. But they were like, nah, we got this. So I guess it would have been like, no, bro, we got this. That was terrible. One of the worst Australian accents you'll ever hear. No, bro, we got this. I don't know why I tried again. Except, of course, they didn't have it and ended up, at the end of last year, postponing it until November of this year. Because they were like, no, seriously, I'm going to stop trying. No, seriously, in November 2021, we really got this. And then, of course, the race was eventually canceled on July 6th, 2021. Now, the reason the 2021 Australian GP was reported as being canceled was because F1, as well as MotoGP, which also had its 2021 Australia race scrapped, needed commitments from the country of Australia that the country's low vaccination rate, international travel cutbacks, and mandatory quarantines made them unable to agree to. So a replacement for Australia on the F1 calendar was needed, and Qatar had a successful bid to be that replacement. It was yet another successful sporting bid for the country of Qatar, which will host the World Cup in 2022. And at this point, I would be remiss to not present some of the controversy surrounding Qatar as a sports host country. Former FIFA president Sepp Blatter, noted ousted man, has claimed that Qatar cheated in order to win the 2022 World Cup hosting bid, suggesting that some potential corruption might be, in the works as far as Qatar's sporting federations go. Qatar has also come under fire from Amnesty International for reported mistreatment and exploitation of its base of largely South Asian migrant workers who have been tasked with building the country's new World Cup stadia. You may see or hear some protests surrounding this race, and the latter is probably why. So Qatar will host the Qatar Grand Prix at Lusail this weekend, won't be on the 22 calendar, and then is under contract to host an F1 race from 2023 to 2032 at what may end up being a new circuit specially designed for hosting F1. Of course, we all hope that the working conditions surrounding the construction of that potential racetrack will be entirely humane and non-exploitative. So that is a little bit of a preview of the Lusail racetrack and of how the Qatar Grand Prix came to be. Support for the Formula Bowen F1 show is brought to you by MyBookie, where you can win money using your F1 knowledge. Doesn't that sound fun? From all of the biggest games to the smallest events, make every bet worth your while with MyBookie on their website, MyBookie.ag. This is a great time to get on MyBookie, by the way, as they're about to have a bunch of Thanksgiving and Black Friday promotions for you to take advantage of. And right now, you can start your MyBookie journey off by doubling your first deposit instantly. With MyBookie's first deposit bonus, double your money before you even place a bet. And all you have to do is sign up and deposit using my exclusive promo code FORMULA, 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 at MyBookie.ag. That's the code, FORMULA. Stipulations apply, so make sure you read those before you deposit. And now, after you've got your deposit bonus, you can get to betting on Formula One. It's just that easy. Right now, MyBookie has the lines up for this weekend's Qatar Grand Prix. Here are a few of them. Lewis to win is currently minus 150, which is my pick if you enjoy betting pre-weekend lines. Max is currently plus 165. Bottas is plus 1,400, and Perez is plus 1,600. If you're wondering, and I know everybody is, the Haas's are both plus 50,000. Those are not good odds, but if you like betting, 500 to 1, if you like the long shot, take Schumacher, take Mazepin. Mazepin did look pretty dejected after his Brazilian qualifying performance. Maybe he's gonna really bring it here in Qatar. I wouldn't hold your breath on that one. Don't wait any longer. Head to mybookie.ag today to redeem your double deposit bonus so you can get in the game and start winning big today. That's promo code FORMULA to receive double your first deposit instantly in your account. No hassle, no wait. Stipulations apply. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie at mybookie.ag, promo code FORMULA. Thank you to MyBookie for supporting the Formula Bowen F1 show. Okay, it's now time for my 2021 Qatar Grand Prix storylines to follow. First up, as always, as you expect, Max versus Lewis in the battle to become 2021's World Drivers' Champion. This is the most exciting title race in years, but I regret to inform you that this should not be a super exciting race, given the racetrack and the current car of one Lewis Hamilton. Lusail is a racetrack seemingly designed for a Mercedes victory, with a 1.1 kilometer straight and only one truly low-speed corner that's turn 6. Because of this, I expect Mercedes to widen their lead in the constructors in Qatar. One very interesting literal wrench that can be thrown into things, though, is the current engine penalty standoff going on between Max and Lewis right now. As of this podcast recording, it's been rumored that both Max and Lewis may be taking new ICEs this weekend. ICE, of course, is an internal combustion engine. It's not ICE for the drink system or whatever. Yes, by the way, this would be 2 ICEs in a row for Lewis, But considering Mercedes' less than ideal engine reliability this season, the fact that Lewis surely overclocked his new ice last weekend as he ran through the entire field almost twice, and the fact that Lusail is built for Mercedes overtakes, I would not be shocked at all if Lewis got another ice before Qatar. Now, if he does this, Red Bull has two options. Stick with the same internal combustion engine that saw Max get destroyed by Lewis in Brazil, or fit a new one that hopefully, somehow, gives Max an edge. If Lewis doesn't get a new internal combustion engine, Red Bull will have to decide if they want Max to, based on if they think it will give him an edge over the course of the remaining 3 races. My thought is that this would be dangerous for Red Bull, as this track seems so Mercedes-friendly that if he takes a penalty, I could see a Mercedes 1-2, which would be very bad for Max's title chances. Now, here's a title scenario that I saw on Twitter from @motorsportfan13. Hamilton wins in Qatar and Jeddah, which is the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix next weekend. Or not next weekend, in 2 weekends. Max finishes second both races. Now, points are tied going into the final race, but Max leads due to more victories. Lewis qualifies on pole, Max on P2. Can you imagine? But this scenario demonstrates why it's super risky for Max to take a new ice unless Red Bull are certain he will still be faster than Bottas. So that's kind of where it stands in my opinion, is do we think that Max with a new ice will be faster than Bottas? I really don't think right now that Red Bull are willing to give up a Max P2, but we will find out. I'm excited to see what's going on with these engine penalties this weekend. Could play a massive, massive role in the title race. Next up for the storylines, we have Ferrari versus McLaren's battle for third in the constructors, or should I say, former battle. Rest in peace, McLaren. Watch for Ferrari to widen their gap on McLaren and Qatar. Not totally sure what happened to the Papayas at the end of this season, but at least they'll always have Monza, just like Zach Brown will always have his Monza tattoo. P.S. We're still waiting for you to get that tattoo, Cyril. I also want to note that McLaren's performance has gone downhill in a major way ever since they commented on one of my TikToks. I'm not saying that that is bad luck, because I want other teams to comment on my TikToks, but just saying that that is what happened. Finally, we're about to have the most interesting FP2 all season. Like I said earlier, Qatar's FP2 will be the only true race conditions practice session in Qatar, so be on the lookout for how everyone's looking during FP2, and maybe that can help you place the best bet possible on MyBookie.ag with code FORMULA. Finally, it's time for my pre-race weekend picks for the top 5 Sunday finishers. This is not my qualifying picks, it's just my straight Sunday race top 5 before grid penalties, practice happenings, qualifying results, whatever. I'm trying to predict the future here. Okay, guys, let's see how I do. P5, Carlos Sainz. He's been racing well lately, and I think he puts together a nice race in Qatar. I think he beats out Gasly. I think he beats out, Leclerc. Those are really the only 2 people really challenging him. Maybe Norris. Norris did get a good start in Brazil, I will say. I think if he didn't run into Sainz there, if he just waited a little bit longer in order to get in front of Carlos, he could have had a nice performance. So Lando is the only other one who I'm really concerned with, taking P5 over Carlos, but Carlos has been more consistent lately for sure. P4, Checo. Mostly because I think a Red Bull finishes behind both Mercedes and that it's not going to be Max. P3, Valtteri Bottas. Like I said, this circuit seems so Mercedes it hurts. I would be shocked if we didn't get another double Mercedes podium here in Qatar. P2, Max, of course. I don't think Red Bull will do anything to sacrifice Max's P2 here. I think they know Lewis is going to most likely win, barring some crazy happenstance, even if he takes an engine penalty. I think they want to protect his P2, and so I don't think they're going to make a call that would sacrifice that. That's just my take. Maybe they're going to be more aggressive. Who knows? MP1, of course, Lewis. Even if he takes an engine penalty, there's just no stopping Lewis right now, in my opinion. I think Lewis wins this race. Those odds on my bookie, I believe, were minus 150. Might have to take that. It just seems like such a foregone conclusion right now. It really does to me. It really does. Support for the Formula Bone F1 show is also brought to you by BlueChew, which is here to help you out, unlike the stewards if you're Mercedes. There are all kinds of reasons the guys aren't able to, quote-unquote, perform. Age, medical condition, and for the younger guys, stress and anxiety. Luckily, the chewables from BlueChew.com can help make sure you're able to perform at your best. BlueChew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, except in a chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. BlueChew's tablets combat all forms of ED and can help men gain extra confidence for when it's time to perform. BlueChew is an online prescription service, so it absolutely could not be more convenient. There are no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy, and it ships right to your door in a discreet package. The process is simple. You just sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part is that it's all done online. BlueChew's licensed medical providers work with you to find the right ingredient and strength for your prescription. BlueChew's sildenafil and tadalafil tablets are chewable tablets made in the USA, and BlueChew prepares and ships direct, so it's cheaper than a pharmacy. If you could benefit from extra confidence when it's time to perform, visit BlueChew.com. Formula Bone F1 Show listeners, that's you, can try BlueChew free when you use my promo code FBone at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com, promo code FBone to receive your first month free. Promo code FBone, and your FBone will be thanking J-Bone for the BlueChew. Thank you to BlueChew for supporting the Formula Bone F1 Show, and thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Formula Bone F1 Show. If you want to support the podcast, there are 3 ways you can do that right now. Rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts so we can push up the charts and reach a ton of new people who are looking for an F1 podcast. You can also share this podcast with the friends that you love to talk F1 with so we can continue to grow this new but already amazing community of listeners. You can support our sponsors. That's MyBookie, promo code FORMULA at MyBookie.ag for a double deposit bonus. Stipulations apply. And BlueChew, promo code FBone for your FBone on BlueChew.com to receive your first month free. Free! You can follow Formula Bone on social media everywhere at Formula Bone, including Twitter, where I live tweet every single race, and YouTube, where I have full video episodes of every podcast. If you prefer to watch your podcasts, I recommend you watch at least one of the Formula Bone F1 Show podcasts because I literally sit here in a race car bed, a child's race car bed, recording this show. It's just what I do. It's just my thing. Now I'm the race car bed guy on TikTok. Do I want to be called that? Yes. I think it's kind of funny. I really do. You can also follow me, J-Bone, everywhere on social media at my real name, which is at Jared Borislow, JaredBorislow. And if you're all caught up on the Formula Bone F1 Show but want to keep hearing my voice, I co-host a comedy and mental health focused podcast called the Bolen Podcast, where we have a ton of fun covering a wide variety of topics, including current events, non-F1 sports, fast food, funny news stories, cool animals, insane history, pirates, and a lot more. It's a show about everything. It's like the opposite of Seinfeld, but just as fun. Just as fun. Maybe more fun. More fun for me, personally. I think you too. You can check out the Bolen Podcast wherever you're listening to this podcast right now. That's ROSSBOLEN, the Bolen Podcast. It's time for the NPR style sign-off. The Formula Bone F1 Show is brought to you by Bolen Media and hosted by me, Jared J-Bone Borislow. I also produce the show because I'm a content machine. Our new theme music is by 7 to Midnight. You can follow him on social media at the number 7 TO Midnight. You can follow the show on social media by following at Formula Bone everywhere. You can watch the show on YouTube by searching Formula Bone. And you can help the show reach new listeners by rating and reviewing the Formula Bone F1 Show on Apple Podcasts. Until we meet again, J-Bone!